Well, welcome back. Welcome anew. I'm Joseph McClendon III, and you have landed on the Further Faster podcast, where we do exactly what the name implies. We assist you in going further, faster, and becoming more wealthy. And around here, wealthy means to be healthy, happy, and financially abundant. And you are going to absolutely love today's subject, because today I'm going to do part 2 of the 21 immutable laws of magnetism. And remember, this is not the laws of attraction. That stuff is great. But remember, the laws of attraction are only one of the 21 immutable laws of magnetism. This is how to magnetize yourself and magnetize that which you desire so that you both move towards each other. So grab a pad and paper, because this is science, ladies and gentlemen. And I'll be right back with law number 2 of the 21 immutable laws of magnetism. Well, welcome back. And this is law number 2 of the 21 immutable laws of magnetism. I'm going to start things off with just a really, really quick reiteration of what this is all about. Why magnetism versus attraction and manifestation and all of those things. Those things are great. However, they are 25 or actually 5,000-year-old philosophy with very little process involved. And what I like to do is I like to involve science in everything that I do. And magnetism is about that. We all have electromagnetic energy that we put off. We all become magnets. We are magnets, and we have the ability to send that energy into whatever it is that we want, at the risk of sounding too cosmic. And just as a reminder as well, this is not unicorns and crystals and rainbows. This is actual science. And so law number 1 was the law of intention and attention. And that is, whatever you put your attention on, that is where you'll send that energy. You'll become more magnetized, and it will become magnetized as well. Law number 2 is the law of sound. And that's it, sound. How it affects you, how it affects other things, and more specifically, how it magnetizes you and sends that energy that you have towards what you want, and magnetize it, and you become closer to each other. Now, I also want to remind you that the foundation of all of this, or what makes this work, are 2 things: intensity and frequency. Intensity and frequency. Now, the basic explanation of the 2 of them is intensity is the amount, the volume of, or the density of whatever we're talking about. In this case, we're talking about the intensity of the electricity that runs through your body in any given moment. The intensity of light means that light is going to get brighter when you turn up that rheostat, because you're sending more energy, electricity, to that light bulb. That's how it gets brighter. Well, think of yourself as the same thing. Your body, your physical body, is that light bulb. The rheostat, or the switch, or the knob, is your physical body and your thoughts. The more you turn those things up, then guess what? The more intense the electricity is in you. And another way of looking at electricity around here is magnetism. That's it. That's all you have to understand. You don't have to make it any more complicated than that. As a matter of fact, if you want to make a magnet, guess how you make that magnet? You bombard it with what? Electricity, electrons. That's it. And so how we turn ours up is through these 21 immutable laws that we're talking about. And as I said before, the 2 quickest ways are number 1, your thoughts, meaning whatever you're looking at and whatever you're saying to yourself, or that's the second part today, and how you move your body. And the other thing is frequency. Now, frequency oftentimes is misunderstood, because we think of it as being, okay, well, it is a certain tone of something, or, the frequency of a radio frequency or something like that. But in this case, and in the cases of all of those, it is how often something happens, how quickly it happens, how rapidly it happens. More specifically, how frequently the electromagnetic waves, if you will, or as you've heard them called vibrations, happen. The frequency of something, how frequent it happens. So how frequent you are that bright light bulb, or how frequent you cause yourself to be more electric or magnetic is one thing. But the other thing is the actual frequency of the electricity, the intensity of that electricity means that there is an exact exact specific measurement of that electricity that makes it what it is. Let's look at, let's say, here's one. We all have cell phones, right? You ever stop to wonder how is it that there are billions of cell phones and billions of different cell phone numbers? And what I mean by that is your cell phone has a very specific level of electricity that it is putting out when it's turned on. Out of the billions and billions of ones that are out, of levels that are out there, yours has that very specific one. Let's say yours is 1,337,000, whatever it is, that's yours. Well, check this out. Everything, all electricity, there's lots of different levels. There's billions of different levels. And when you find out whatever that level is, then you can use that to your favor. Now, how frequently it's putting out there is the frequency of the amount of times that it's put out. So when you dial out, when you dial a number, your number is looking for that number that's out there, and you become connected. What's another word for that? It's magnetism. You become magnetized because you actually send a signal from your level to the level of that person that you're calling. Why do I say all of that? Well, it's the same with you as a human being. You as a human being, every cell in your body has a different level of electricity that it's putting out in any given moment. You know, I have this ring I just got a little while ago, and the ring is called a aura ring, O-U-R-A. And what it does is it registers and monitors my sleep when I go to sleep. And you want to hear the craziest thing? It knows when I'm awake, and it knows when I'm asleep. It knows when I'm in deep sleep. It knows when I'm in REM sleep. It knows all that stuff. And how does it know it? Because that ring has sensors on it that picks up the levels of electricity that my body and my cells are putting off for a given whatever mode that I'm in. Why do I say that? Because you, as a human being, that's all you got to do. Is there's only a couple different, it was 21 to be exact, of different ways that you can tap in and cause those frequencies and those levels and that intensity to favor you. And the second law is the law of sound. What does that mean? Sound is the same thing. It uses the same things of everything on the planet. Intensity and frequency. Intensity of electricity and frequency of how often that sound happens. Meaning, if you're hearing me right now, what is happening is there are electromagnetic waves. Because remember, everything is made of electrons, protons, and neutrons. So those electrons that are coming out of my mouth, my vocal cords that are vibrating right now, going into this microphone, and that microphone has a ribbon inside of it that's vibrating. It's going through these wires. It's going over the internet, getting to you right now. And guess what's happening? Those speakers are vibrating. And guess what? That is putting out electromagnetic energy that's, guess what? It's hitting your eardrums, and those eardrums, because it's catching the frequency of those, of that sound, making your eardrums vibrate. When your eardrums vibrate, guess what happens? Because it's just bouncing off those eardrums, it is sending that electromagnetic pulse to your brain, and your brain goes, well, what does that word mean? Now, all of that stuff to say, you don't ever have to think about that. It just happens automatically. And so guess what happens automatically as well? Sound. It's around us all the time. But guess what? Every single sound carries with it that ability to affect something else. And so in this case right now, the sound that you use is the sound that you would be using specifically about the things that you desire, your dreams, goals, and desires to become wealthy, healthy, happy, and financially abundant. So when you speak about those things, the sound that we're talking about right now are the words that we use. Not only the words that come out of our mouths, but the words that are in our brain. Whatever you do, whenever it is, it's still, no matter what, it's still electrons, protons, and neutrons. So it's always sending that stuff out there. And guess what? On the other end, think of it as the cell phone example again. On the other end, that cell phone, that number that you're dialing in, is tuned into that exact intensity and exact frequency. And it's picking it up and it's saying, hey, let me answer that and let me move towards that. Now, all these metaphors may sound silly, but if you're watching me, I'm going to show you a video here real quickly. And in this video, you're going to notice what is happening. And I'm going to set it up by saying this. Every word, every sound, as I said before, carries with it an intensity and a frequency. And its likeness on the other side of it picks it up and vibrates at that same exact frequency, making it a magnet as well. Because remember, magnetism is not just a magnet attracting steel. Magnetism is a magnet attracting a magnet. And magnets move quicker, easier, faster towards each other than a magnet and steel. And once they start to move, they move faster and faster towards each other as well. Said differently, our outcome is to not only magnetize ourselves, not only get our intensity and frequency of our magnetism going by being excited and moving our body and saying these words and everything, but also while we're doing that, and we go back to step number one, when we put our attention and intention on what we want, that's like dialing that cell phone number of that money or that car or that health or that situation or that circumstance or whatever it is that you desire. It is that simple. And so the video that if you're watching me right now, you'll be seeing this video, but let me set it up. Here's what happens. There's a man, and this man has tuning forks. And tuning forks, just so you know, is the thing you may have seen them. It looks like a fork, a two-pronged fork that when you hit it, it gives off a tone, a sound. They used to use them years ago for tuning things. That's why they call it a tuning fork. When you hit the tuning fork, it will ring a certain tone. Now, for all practical purposes, there are 12 different tones, 12 different notes, just for all practical purposes, right? And let's say this particular one that this man is hitting is the note C. He has sitting next to it another tuning fork, and next to that tuning fork, laying up against the tuning fork, it's on a wooden block, it's standing next to it, is a rubber ball attached to a string, and it's touching that tuning fork. So if that tuning fork were to move, that ball would move as well. So the other tuning fork is, let's say, the note G. So he hits the tuning fork that he has in his hand, that's a C, and it vibrates at the frequency and intensity of the note C, which means it's sending it out there to the universe, everywhere around. Your ears can pick it up, everything can pick it up. But the tuning fork that's a G tuning fork doesn't move at all. Therefore, the ball doesn't move at all. Now he takes another tuning fork. He puts the C away and takes another tuning fork. And that tuning fork is a G as well, just like the other one. He strikes that one, and guess what happens to the other one, the other G with the ball against it? It starts to vibrate, and the ball bounces off of it. You can see it happening. He hits it again, it bounces off of it again. What does that mean? It means that that specific frequency of G, that sound, is traveling through space. Now, by the way, it's unseen forces. Sound is unseen forces. You can't see sound. You can see its representation on an oscilloscope. We see those waves go up and down and that kind of thing, but you can't actually see it. You can't see that electromagnetic energy going through the air, if you will. And the reason that tuning fork is bouncing off, or that ball is bouncing off that tuning fork, because it is the exact same frequency as the other. Said differently, back on our metaphor about the cell phone, that G tuning fork is dialing up the other G tuning fork. So the other G tuning fork picks up its vibrations, or its frequency, and its tone and its intensity. And if you notice, when he hits it harder, the ball bounces harder as well. So he's building up the intensity. Why do I say that? It's the same with you, with your words, your sounds. And guess what? You're talking all the time, constantly, with your mouth open or your mouth closed. And by the way, the same thing works with your thoughts, because your thoughts, remember I said before, it's an intention and attention. When you put your thoughts on something, guess what? Your thoughts are doing it as well. Now, in this case right now, we're, no pun intended, talking about the actual words that we use. Those words carry with it, just like the tuning fork, just like the cell phone, carry with them a very specific frequency, a very specific intensity, and a very specific level for the millions of things that are out there in the world. Said differently, your dreams, your goals, your desires, anything that you want, materials, situations, circumstances, anything that you want is out there right now. And its cell phone is on, saying, bring it to me. What do you want? What do you want? Why? Because it's all energy. Because it's all, and again, when we say things like energy, and it depends on the type of person you are, sometimes people roll their eyes and go, oh God, here we go again, energy and all that stuff. Well, listen, it's provable. At the top of this, I said it's science. And so what I encourage you to do is to go onto YouTube and just look up something called Carillion photography. And you will see with your own eyes, now they have video of it, that every living thing, actually everything, puts off an electromagnetic field. And that electromagnetic field fluctuates. It grows in intensity and it grows in frequency. How often that thing is vibrating. Living things mostly, but everything actually gives off an electromagnetic thing. And evidence of that is this earth that we stand on. This earth that we stand on gives off an electromagnetic pulse. So if everything does, including the air around you, including everything it does, doesn't it make sense that it has its own intensity and frequency as well? And doesn't it make sense that when you speak to it in its own language, for lack of a better term, you cause it to do exactly what the tuning fork does, exactly what your cell phone does, and that is it lights up and says, hey, I'm paying attention. Where do you want me to go? Of course it does. Of course it does. Now, I have the tendency to talk about things in metaphors and things like that. So let's bring it back to this human body that we have right now. Every single one of us, all of us, how we communicate with others is what? Through our words. Now, I can say the word dog. And in your mind, you may be thinking of a Rottweiler or a Great Dane or a Shih Tzu or a Pekingese or whatever. Well, I'm thinking about a Welsh Corgi. The kind of dogs that the Queens have. We have one here, which means we're both thinking about dogs, but you don't know exactly what I'm talking about unless I describe to you exactly the type of dog I'm talking about. Then we're on the same page. Then you're going, oh yeah, I've seen one of those. And if you haven't seen one, I could describe it to you. It's a long dog, kind of furry, big ears and really short legs. And you go, oh yeah, I remember one of those. I've seen one of those before. If you still haven't seen one, I could show you a picture of one. I go, this is a Corgi. And then guess what? Now we're on the same frequency. And now you know exactly what I want. And now we're in tune. But check this out. The reason I say that is what happens is as soon as you go, aha, and those eyebrows go up and you have an aha moment, your brain releases dopamine. You feel good and your brain goes, hey, that feels good. Let me remember that and let's do that again. And you and I, guess what? We have connection because now we have something called rapport. We're connected to each other. Now, all of that to say, because a lot of people say, well, what about other people? Bringing other people in. What about magnetizing? Well, it's the same thing. In the Neuroencoding Institute, we teach about rapport, how to connect with other people, with your words and with your energy and all of those things. And what happens is it causes them to move more specifically and more quickly and with more intention in your direction. And so all this to say, the specific words that we use towards what we want, who we want, will make a difference on that happening. And I'm going to be right back to give you some specific words to use that are going to intensify the frequency towards that what you want. So I'll be right back with you. Hey, what's good? It's me, Joseph McClendon III, and let me get real with you just for a second. Now, you've probably heard me talk about this before, something that I call the thieves of our dreams. Procrastination, hesitation, fear of failure, fear of success, self-doubt, self-loathing, imposter syndrome, and fear of rejection. Well, let me ask you a question. What if you could not only retrain your brain and your nervous system to automatically default to your absolute best thoughts, emotions, and behaviors, but you could also do the same for others that are going through difficult times and challenges in their own lives and things that are stopping them from creating the life of their desires? Well, this is what I call neuroencoding. And at the risk of sounding arrogant, these are the same tools, methods, and strategies in neuroscience that I've used to operate in the upper 5% of all of my own businesses, especially as a coach, a speaker, and a presenter for the last 30 plus years. The Neuroencoding Institute provides you with the knowledge, the tools, and unmatched support to become a certified neuroencoding specialist and guide you to the life of wealthiness. And remember, wealthy means to be healthy, happy, and financially abundant. Go to neuroencoding.com to speak to an enrollment specialist today, and I look forward to serving you at the highest level.
You're enjoying this episode on Angel Phoenix Productions Podcast Network. To explore a complete lineup of quality programs and media production services, head on over to angelphoenix.com or like our Facebook page at facebook.com/Angel Phoenix Productions.
Now, before I get started, I'm going to tell you about some specific words and the types of words that you want to use to, let's just say, activate that whole thing that we were talking about previous. Before I say that, there's a question that's always asked. Well, Joseph, what if what I'm thinking about is negative? Am I attracting that as well? And in this case, what if the things that I'm saying are negative? Am I attracting that as well? Well, the answer is, yeah, kind of. And as ridiculous as an answer that is, underneath everything you have, because you could say all the negative stuff that you want, and yes, you are magnetizing that as well. You're magnetizing yourself. But here's the caveat. The type, the intensity of magnetism that you have in negative stuff is different than the intensity of something that is positive. And more specifically, here's what happens. Instead of magnetizing that towards us, what we're doing is we're actually pushing away what we want. If you remember and you can go back and take a look at it, the very first one that I showed you about magnetism. If you take two magnets, and I show you on the video, you put these magnets together, they'll stick to each other. But if you flip one of them over, guess what it does? Is it changes the polarity and it pushes it away. So when people want something, but they say negative stuff about it, say somebody wants money, but they say things like, you know what, I've always been broke, or I'm not smart, or I'm unlucky, or whatever. Instead of attracting that negative stuff to it, yes, it is sending it out there, you know, and saying, if I don't want to be broke, then guess what's happening? What's more specific happening is that low frequency and that low level of intensity that is going out there is not just attracting that to you, but what it's doing more specifically is pushing what you want away, just like that magnet. It's called sabotage. It is why we say we're going to do something, we procrastinate or we hesitate. So the electromagnetic energy is always going out. It's just that level of intensity. And we always want things. As a matter of fact, it's part of us being human beings. You're born always wanting something. When you stop wanting something, that's the day you take a dirt nap. That's when it's over. And so if you want money, if you want a better body, if you want all those things, but you're saying and you're thinking things that you can't, then guess what's happening? You're literally flipping that over and pushing it away from you. And when it pushes it away from you, that's called sabotage. That's called procrastination. That's called hesitation. That's called fear of failure, fear of success, self-doubt, self-loathing, and all of those things. And that is why, by the way, so many people procrastinate. And let me go off on just a little bit of a tangent. Maybe some of you are listening to me on it right now. Our cell phones and the scrolling and stuff that we do, all of this stuff is designed to keep you sabotaged. It's designed to keep you looking at what you don't want and keep you looking at other things to distract you. So the words that are being put into your head are the words that somebody else has chosen for you. And what happens to people all along consistently is that we spend so much time doing that. So instead, doesn't it make better sense for you to not only design, but to intentionally use the words and pictures, and in this case, the words that we're talking about, that are going to serve you and activate all of those things that I previously talked about? Well, of course it does. And so that question, the reason I started off with that question is because what might be going on in the back of your mind is, yeah, but what about this? And remember what I said, those words that are even in your head make a difference as well. So in this case, the words that you want to use, the types of words that you want to use are directly towards what you want. I'm going to give you an example. That I use. And again, I always use myself not as an example of the way that things should be, like I'm some shining example of the way that life should be. And I do use myself as an example of what is possible. And so I'm going to give you an example of this very house that I live in. And I know I used this example before, if you've heard me before. And I've used this my whole life. And I learned it, by the way. I learned all of this stuff and just kind of, I added my flavor to it over the years. But I learned it years ago in the book, Think and Grow Rich. Think and Grow Rich, what he gave us was he gave us a set of affirmations. And these set of affirmations are the things that you wanted. And he would say, write it down first, which, by the way, spoiler alert, writing is one of the 21 immutable laws of magnetism as well, but we'll come up to that. Write down what it is that you want and then speak that out loud every single day. That was as simple as it was. And so I'm going to use the example of money for an example. Or in this case, I'm going to use this house that I'm living in right now. Again, this formula that I've been using is the same one I've been using. I teach over and over again at the Magnetic Success Summit and all of those things. So when I finally saw where I wanted to live, and I decided that this was where I wanted to live, let me back up. When I finally decided that I needed to move, what I did was I took out a piece of paper and I wrote down exactly what I wanted. I wanted a house. The reason that I moved was I moved to be closer to my son's school because it was taking me 2 hours a day to get him back and forth to school. So I wrote down on a piece of paper, on or before November 6th, I guess it was 2021. Yeah. And I said my name, Joseph McClendon III, have in my possession a 3,500 square foot house, 5 bedrooms, marble floors. And I just put down everything that I possibly could about it. It will be 10 minutes away from my son's school. It will be this amount of, it will be in a gated community, guard gated, live guard gated community, all these things. I put down everything that I possibly could. But guess what I did? Was every day I would get up, I'd get myself excited, and I would speak those words to myself that I just said there. My name, on or before, and this date, have in my possession those things. And I'd write and I'd speak them out loud with, guess what? With a lot of intensity. And guess how many times I did it? As much as possible. Sometimes 3, 4, 5 times a day. And guess what? Within just a few days, that house turned up. I didn't know where it was going to be. And by the way, I had traveled the same route every day for 6 months and hadn't seen this house, hadn't seen this gated community. And all of a sudden, bam, there it was. Now, am I saying that I magically made it happen? No. I'm just saying that it made me attracted to that. And I found it. I looked at it. And the house that I'm living in right now, marble floors, square footage that I wanted, it's 10 minutes away from my son's school, 100%, 24-hour guard gated community, all those things that I said. And I have 1,000 different stories of not only myself, but other people that are doing the same thing. So why do I say that? The words that you want to use are words like that. I and your name have in my possession. A, B, C, D, whatever it is that you want. Describe it. I also added to it things like what I am doing in exchange is that I'm having an open mind about it. What I'm doing in exchange is I'm looking for. What I'm doing in exchange is taking the action to make it happen. I wrote it down, but then I spoke it. Now, the outcome is this. The words that you want to use is you want to say it in the positive, as though you already have it, as though it's already there. Now, some of you are already familiar with this type of philosophy. But the truth of the matter is, most people don't do it. Most people don't use it. And so your assignment is this, whatever it is that you want, health, happiness, financial abundance, whatever it is, get out a pad and paper. And again, I'm going to go into much more depth a little bit later with regard to what you write is what you invite. And you're going to write it down. But what I want you to do is utilize those words that I said before. I, your name, have in my possession, or I always say I give it a date, on or before this date, have in my possession this, and this, and what I'm willing to give for it. It is that simple. And so the trick to life truly is, remember this, life is always exactly what you dare to make it, and fortune favors the bold. And so the outcome is to always boldly step up and dare to make your life magnificent. This is Further Faster, and I will see you at the top.
This podcast was a production of Angel Phoenix Productions. Explore more episodes of this show or other great shows on the Angel Phoenix Podcast Network by visiting angelphoenix.com. The views expressed in this show do not necessarily represent those of Angel Phoenix Productions or its advertisers and may contain language that's unsuitable for younger listeners.